Today, I want to talk about tritones and triads. So we're going to use Bill Evans playing Stella by Starlight as our template to begin to understand this and how to apply it. Our goal is to try to get this concept and understand the more conceptual idea so that we can put it into our own playing and put it in different contexts. So let's get into it. So first of all, let's pull out from the transcription these specific chords. So he starts off with one here, tritone here. So we got that. Now in our right hand, we're going to have a triad. In this case, he's playing a D major triad. And look at that voicing. It sounds really nice. Now we carry that all the way up. We got these nice voicings. So he starts off here, and this happens on the E minor 7 flat 5 chord. That's the first chord of Stella by Starlight. So if we look at it here, we have the root, we have the flat 5, and we have the 7th, so that communicates E minor 7. The only thing we don't have is the third. But usually with this voicing, it's with the third omitted. But if you notice that we still get a nice full sound even without that third. One of the few chords that we can get away without that third. All right, so look how nice that sounds. And then he goes here. All right, so here you may say, okay, that's a different chord, but it's actually the same type of chord. Tritone, F major triad. Okay, so from the first two songs we kind of see Bill Evans doing this, and here's the key thing: anytime I see a great jazz pianist or a great pianist use something, I try to figure out the why behind it because I want to get that into my playing. Definitely if it sounds as pretty as this, right? So let's figure out what's going on here, and how can we make this work? Okay, so. We talked about why this works for an E minor 7 flat 5. Again, we got the root, flat 5, 7th, we got the 9th and the 11th here. Nice voicing. Now here, the next chord of Stella by Starlight is an A7 altered sound. So here, this tritone, and here's a key thing about tritones, the tritone for a dominant chord gives you the 3rd and the 7th, which are the pivotal notes in a dominant chord, because the 3rd has to be a major 3rd, which makes it dominant, and then the 7th give you the flat 7th, which makes it a dominant sound. So in this case, here's the 7th G, and here's the major 3rd of A, and that communicates A dominant on its own. Okay, but it's just without the root. Okay, but this communicates A dominant here. Okay, it also communicate E flat dominant, because here's the 3rd and here's the 7th of an E flat, and that's going to become important later on in the video. So if we look at this here and we look at the F major triad, oh wow. So first of all, let's figure out how does this relate to A dominant. So now this becomes a sharp 5 here, this F here. That's the root again, and this becomes a sharp 9 here. Nice voicing, all right? Now, here's the chord how to find it quickly. So you could do it in different keys, different contexts. Whatever find your tritone first. So if we want an A dominant chord, here's our tritone for that, or the 7th and the 3rd of that. From this bottom note here, you go down a whole step, which would be an F, and you play the triad in your right hand. F major triad. And that's how we find that voicing. Now here's a key thing. Melody dictates everything. Here's what I mean. In the original, so that works, right? That's why Bill Evans was able to use this chord here. The original melody goes, all right? But Bill Evans didn't do that. He did this. He went to this C. Now, It's a hypothesis, but I think he wanted the same voicing. And with that voicing, that C is at the top, so he altered the melody a little bit. If he would have kept the same melody, he would have had to use some type of different voicing. So I believe, an opinion of mine, that he wanted this voicing, so therefore he altered the melody. And that is very key. If you want to keep the integrity of the melody, sometimes that would dictate, are you able to use the voicing that I'm talking about here? Or any voicing. The melody dictates everything. So that's why in this case, I believe that Bill Evans went here. Because I think he wanted that voicing. Now, watch this. He does it again later on. Later on in the song, right here on this F dominant chord. And that's what I want to focus on. Places to use this concept, triads and tritones, on dominant chords. The first chord is happening on the E minor 7 flat 5, and we're going to talk about that in another video. But today I want to focus on how can we use it in dominant chords, because you will see dominant chords a lot in jazz standards. Definitely in 2-5-1s, which you know we see frequently in jazz standards. So let's take a song like Misty. Misty is in the key of E flat. All right. Different from Stella by Starlight, which is in the key of B flat. Closely related keys, but there's two different keys. Now, our goal is to find all the dominant chords and use this voicing that Bill Evans used, that we just learned from Bill Evans, and see if we can apply it and see if it works. Understanding that melody is going to dictate our choices. Are we able to use the chord or not? Do we have to alter the melody to make the chord that we want fit? So let's see. Let's use Misty. It starts off on an E flat major 7. Then it goes to B flat minor. Up, E flat dominant. We can use this. Now, the next step is to figure out what is the melody that's happening over top of this E flat dominant. Okay, we have a C here and B flat. All right, so let's see if this works. So first things first, remember we got the root. Remember I said how to find a tritone is just the 3rd and the 7th? Remember earlier in the video how I referred to how it's the same one for E flat as well. So here we got G and D flat, which is the 3rd and the 7th. Now, just from it's the same thing from the Bill Evans voicing, even though we was talking about an A dominant, it's the same concept. F major, because down here, you go down the whole step, be an F major. It may work because, remember, this melody, this was part of our melody. So let's see if it works. We gotta resolve it, but that works. That works nicely, actually, right? So that works there. Let's keep going. Oh, here we got a D flat dominant. Well, let's find the tritone. Boom, here. All right, and now we go down the whole step, which is an E flat. So we're gonna put an E flat. Does the melody work there? Let's see. There it is. Yeah, it works. So now we got something that works. We put it into a different context, and the melody actually worked within this voicing, which is cool. Now, we actually was able to put it and make it our own, and now we changed Misty, getting some more exotic voicings. So the next thing I want to show you guys is something else that we could do. So before, we was going down a whole step and did a major triad. What if we did a minor triad? Okay, so let's go up a whole step from this bottom note and play a minor triad. In this case, up a whole step from G would be an A. So let's play an A minor. That gives us a different sound. All right, doesn't sound too cool by itself, but let's put it in context. Let's use Misty again, and instead of on that E flat dominant chord, instead of using the major triads, let's use the minor. So for this E flat, it's going to sound like this with the A minor triad on top, and then for the D flat, instead of using here, there's E flat major, we're going to use a G minor. All right, let's see what it sounds like. Yeah, I like that. Probably better than the first one. Yeah. Gives it a nice sound. And theoretically, the reason why it works here, going back to this one, is just a flat 9. Now we're just adding a flat 9 as opposed to a natural 9. Now we get a flat 9, give more of an altered sound. So very cool voicing. So I advise you to explore it even further. Try to put it into different songs. Get this concept in your mind. And remember, we arrived here just by asking the question, why? Have fun with that.